What's going on, everyone? Scott here. Welcome back to the channel. So, the penultimate episode of Survivor. Season 49 is here, episode 12, and last week we saw Yellow Sophie go home, who has been a big threat this second half of the game. Did not see a lot of her the first half of the game, but really kind of turned it on the second half of the game. We saw a lot more of her in the edit. She's won challenges and has been in a majority alliance of sorts, and she went home last game and in a big, like 6-1 vote, which is kind of surprising at this stage of the game. But with only a handful of days left, will Sophie flip on her two main alliance members of Savannah and Rizzo, who they've kind of controlled this second half of the game, have been in a strong three alliance? The previews kind of hinted at her potentially making a move. We'll see if she actually does it. But first, before we do jump into this week's episode, if you could just hit that like and subscribe button down there. We'll have more Survivor content on the channel, so just make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a video. So back at camp, Steven is particularly happy with holding on to his block a vote in this one, saving it for 6. Sophie now wants to be called Sophie, not all the other aliases that she had out there, Blue Sophie, Sophie Squared, Soph, everything else. She is the Sophie now. Everyone's on the same page, too, which, as I kind of said, was very surprising. A 6-1 vote here this late in the game, but Rizzo still has his idol and says that he has been lying as well, that he got this in the tribe portion of the game, so telling people that it expires at 6, when obviously it really expires at 5, like most idols do that you get for a majority of the game, aside from the, ones that's like, oh, it's good for 2 tribal councils. But so everyone thinks he has to play it at the next tribal council. He technically has it for 2 more tribal councils, but we move into the next day, and Sophie's going through an internal dilemma because she doesn't think if she sits next to Rizzo and Savannah that she would win. But she tells Christina that she needs to make a big time move this time, and she knows that she needs kind of something flashy to zhuzh up her resume, if you will. And we head to the reward challenge, and reward is the Mexican feast, some margaritas, tres leches, sponge cake, donuts, everything you can want, plus a night at the sanctuary, and yes, the letters from home. So biggest reward of the season, and Savannah pulls it out, and on a day in which she was struggling too. So an incredible moment there. She chooses Rizzo and Sophie to go with her. Now, Sophie does say the quiet part out loud, that, there's been kind of a line between them and then the other 3, and thought that, Savannah might put her game ahead of their friendship, because they can go back and strategize against them. But, at the sanctuary, they enjoy their food, and whatnot. And Savannah's like, this is the least I could do for them. They've put their lives on the line for me in this game. Obviously, Savannah's been a target, a good amount of this game. And, they've all, worked with each other and kept each other in the game so far. So I felt like it was only right that they wanted the reward. I was kind of surprised that Savannah didn't try to, but I really don't know who she would pick to try to bring into the group, especially since she was the one that won it. I'm curious if it would have been different if Sophie or Rizzo would have won it, if they would have tried to make another alliance member on the other side to, try to get through this next vote. But I think this was right that the 3 of them went on this reward. They've been such a big story, especially the second half of the game. So I thought it was cool for them to experience that together. But Sophie knows that there'll be some animosity towards them back at camp. Sage feels that this is karma for not getting Savannah out, but Christina tells Sage and Steven that Sophie is ready to make a move. And at the reward, they're worried about, Steven's stuff, like what his advantage is that he got. While back at camp, Steven reveals to Christina and Sage about his block a vote, which in theory could give them a majority. But Sophie has those mixed emotions about sitting at the final 3, and parts of her wants to turn on Rizzo and Savannah, but then feels like this is maybe a sign not to, of, this reward and the good feelings of that. They name themselves the Tres Leches Alliance, so officially named. Need the merch out there right now on Survivor.com or CBS.com, whatever it may be. But Sophie tells them about her knowledge is power advantage as well, and this is kind of the moment I was like, okay, I think we're finally officially locking in. I don't think Sophie will flip, but hang on until later in the episode to see if that continues. But so they can now potentially steal the majority back. This thing kind of kept going back and forth, and really all episode felt like, oh, Steven and them, they're kind of cooking up something. But then Sophie's like, hey, I can steal that, and we can have the advantage now in the majority. So, we'll see how that works out. But meanwhile, Steven, Christina, and Sage are planning on trying to get Savannah out and saying this could be their last supper at the reward. But they back at the reward, they open their loved ones' letters, and man, it's always a tearjerker hearing all of the stories that come from the loved ones' letters every single time. And the overnight stay, back at camp, not going well. They had some critters. They had a rat nose diving into Sage, I believe it was at camp, and moved out to work on the beach to the water, and very windy. Not a good night overall. But the next morning, Savannah, Sophie, and Rizzo return, and Rizzo and Steven talk, and Rizzo tells him the main talk was, what's going to happen with his advantage, which was kind of true, for the most part. But whoever wins today will dictate how this advantage gets played, Steven says, and how the idol gets played as well, because obviously he thinks it needs to be played tonight as well. And then Steven says whoever wins today will dictate how this advantage gets played and how the idol gets played as well. But obviously that's probably not getting played tonight, due to Rizzo having it for one more tribal, but everyone thinking it's, got to be played tonight. But we head to the immunity challenge and slot in the final 5 on the line, and it comes down to a showdown between Savannah and Sage. Really incredible. They broke Dee's record that she held for this challenge just a couple seasons ago, but they broke that record. Epic showdown, and interesting chatter during Sage is, trying to get Savannah to, say, trust her, like, to let her get it, that she has a plan to trust. And Savannah's like, she's like, you've already wrote my name down. I can't really trust that. Savannah's like, or Sage is like, I understand that, but like, trust me, I have a plan, whatever. But they end up keep it going, and Savannah wins her 3rd individual immunity, putting her on the doorstep of joining that elite group of women with 4 individual immunity wins. Obviously, a couple seasons ago, we saw Rachel Lamont added to that list as well. So now Savannah goes to the finale with now 1 win away from joining that elusive group of women with 4 individual immunity wins. So now the 3 of Savannah, Rizzo, and Sophie have the individual immunity, the immunity idol, and Sophie's knowledge is power, and they want Steven out in this thing. Steven and Rizzo talk, and Steven seems to be shifting, the target to Sophie. But as he says, the Tres Leches has this advantage to swoop in and steal that, Rizzo says. But Rizzo extends an olive branch to Sage about getting Steven out. And she talks to Christina about targeting Steven, and she's shocked and doesn't think that she can do it, because Christina and Steven have been close, for a good majority of this game. And especially because Steven probably gives the best option to beat Savannah in a challenge is, Christina's one of her main reasons as well. But Christina is worried that, getting to 5, the 3 of Savannah, Rizzo, and Sophie would just have control of the game. And Christina and Steven talk, and, she says it's best for us 3 to stick together because, it's either write down your name or write down Sophie's name. I'm not writing down yours name. And Steven's like, well, was it a discussion to write down my name? Like, and Steven says in his confessional, like, she's a sloppy player, and she kind of gave away that there was talk about, is Steven the move to be voted out tonight, and has him questioning, are you blindsiding me? Steven tells Sage that, I love Christina, I love her to death, but, she's just kind of a sloppy alliance member sometimes. So obviously Sophie's advantage is the key to tonight. Plus, as Rizzo says, they think this idol expires tonight as well, so using that to their advantage as well. Steven plays the block of vote on Savannah, and this is a key part to this whole thing, which I really don't like, and I'll get more into here in a minute. But Steven has to announce before going to tribal who he is playing the steal of or block of vote on, and he plays the block of vote on Savannah. Sophie talking in the confessional before going to tribal, and says that her grandma would probably want her to take Rizzo's idol and secure her spot going forward. So that kind of puts things up in the air heading into tribal council. And, they talked about the loved ones' letters, that whole reward and the decision from that reward. And Savannah's like, well, they were understanding, to my face at least. Sophie says that obviously I'm on the chopping block with the advantages out there, Steven, immunity necklace, obviously Rizzo's idol as well. And she's like, so I know my name's out there. I know I'm on the chopping block. And Rizzo is playing up that his idol expires tonight. Rizzo says it best, though. Whoever comes out on top tonight could control the rest of the game, and probably will control the rest of the game. Sophie plays her advantage. She asks Steven if he has an advantage. He says no, because he already played it back at camp. And I'm sorry, that is so stupid. Whatever, I just don't get that. Like, what's the, I guess, that adds an extra layer of getting to know what an advantage is. If you had to you get the knowledge that someone has an advantage, but then now you have to go even deeper and know that, oh, this person has an advantage and it has to be played here. It has to be played before you leave tribal. Like, that's, oh, like, so he's able to say no. They move on with the vote, and yeah, I think that is very stupid in my opinion. I'm sorry, but Rizzo goes up to the voting booth. He says, "I got to play my idol." So then it's like, okay, Rizzo's got to play the idol. He's got to play for Sophie. Like, it's obvious it's on Sophie. They all think Rizzo's good. He's not going to play it on himself. They all think that he's safe. He's going to play the idol in general. So Rizzo goes up, acts like he's going to play it, but he ends up keeping it. And Sage and Christina end up flipping, and Steven does end up going home after all of this. And all I could just do was, wow, my hands were, I was doing the surrender cobra pose. I did not know what was going on. And this is exactly why I love this game, because that was just a cluster of the last 5 or 10 minutes of this episode. No idea what was happening, no idea what was going on. And a good callback I saw afterwards is I was as confused as a goat on AstroTurf, if you will. And that was just insane. Still, so the Tres Leches Alliance still gets Steven out, even with not playing an immunity idol, not playing the steal an advantage or knowledge is power advantage, right? And you still get the second biggest challenge threat or left in the game outside of the person that's in your alliance as well. So just an absolutely incredible tribal council for them now getting to the finale. And on the Sage and Christina part, obviously Sage was pushing it because it's like, hey, he's a challenge threat, and from that sense it kind of makes sense to get rid of him because of the challenge portion of the thing. It's like, oh, this person lost, you have a chance to get him out. You have 2 super strong challenge competitors there that have won all these individual immunities in Savannah, but obviously she won it, and then Steven. So if he's available, you got to get him out. And I agree on that front, but I do understand the kind of like, now why would you do that? Because if you don't flip, you have the majority. You're getting someone from that majority 3 out, Sophie, but obviously they wanted Savannah out. So once that kind of happened, they kind of flipped because they thought Rizzo was going to play his idol or had to play it. So it's like, I guess my point is, with the kind of outrage surrounding that, why they would flip, it's like, we don't know the whole story. If you start talking through it, it can make some more sense. Like, it doesn't make sense from you just take a big step back look at it. But if you start to kind of piece this together, okay, did this happen probably because of this, and XYZ, and you start adding stuff up, okay, it probably makes more sense than you can see from first look. But when you give it a second or third look, it starts to make more sense why they would make that flip. But next week we head into the finale, and could there potentially be an advantage? We see something in the tree and in the preview. Christina, tough slide down at the challenge. Rizzo has his idol, so he's guaranteed a spot at 4 and at fire at least. Savannah feels like she's got this in the bag. Not sure if we're talking about a challenge, if we're talking about the game in general. And Sophie with a wow, shocked reaction to something. We'll see. But Rizzo says it best that this is where legends are made. And again, with this episode, emotional roller coaster the last 10 minutes, that they were absolutely insane. And again, this is already, in my opinion, top 3 new era seasons, and hey, it's getting there. It's at 3 right now, but depending how this finale goes, and if it's as crazy as the last 2 or 3 episodes have been, this can get up to 2 or potentially for 1. Yeah, that was a crazy one, but I think we're in for an incredible finale next week, in my opinion. Now, that'll do it for this one. Just a little peek behind the curtain here. We'll still be back with normal Survivor content going into the finale next week. Always, we'll have a preview video for the finale, looking at some of the any of the trailers that we get leading up to next Wednesday's season 49 finale. So we'll still have that going out, and kind of my final finale predictions. We'll have that. And then we'll have, the finale reaction after the game recap, whatever you want to call it. It could potentially be a little delayed, and the preview will also be prematurely recorded. Heading out of town for about 8 days this weekend, and we'll be gone for the finale. We'll be on a cruise ship, so not even sure if I will be able to watch it on Wednesday. I'm trying to be able to set it up to watch it and still potentially record a kind of, just kind of put together reaction, and then we'll have a full proper reaction once I get back. But we'll have the preview recorded for it, and then either afterwards in a very probably short or like just initial reaction to the finale. We'll have out then a full breakdown. Probably will happen once we get back as well. But just a kind of FYI peek behind the curtain on that. But anyway, yeah, that'll do it for this one. Really looking forward to next weekend, the finale. But thank you all so much for watching. See you in the next one. Peace out.